Welcome back here on the Digital Handshake podcast. I'm your host, Scott Jorgensen, and we're pleased to be joined again by a guest we've had on a previous episode, Dr. Ed Gronet
Thank you.
from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is a great experience, and thank you again for getting me back in the studio.
Well, fantastic. Well, first
Yeah.
off, the suit looks amazing.
I'm getting a lot of
Is
compliments
that a
on
new
this today.
suit?
This is the second time I've worn it. I actually picked it up in the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Vegas. Maybe there's like a men's shop on the second, third floor that has like just fresher things instead of just a stiff wool suit. This one's stretchy. I need to figure out how I can get back there and get another one. Yeah, especially with the fanfare it's caused here this morning.
Well, kudos. I think
Yeah.
it's that sort of North Carolina blue or something that makes it pop. But
Hey, we got the Duke game tomorrow. We gotta be ready.
you look sharp.
Thank you, sir.
Well, if you recall from our last episode, we talked a lot about how a young emerging surgeon like yourself is trying to stand out, right? And how you're using social media, how you're using digital marketing to do that. How's it going?
It's going well, but I think you just actually said something super interesting. How to stand out. That is so not my personality. Very interesting topic, or like nuance that you brought up is how do you stand out quietly
Right.
or stand out conservatively, respectfully? Believe it or not, I'm not doing TikTok dances with all of my office staff. They don't even ask because they know it ain't going to happen. Can I dance a little bit? Sure.
Right.
But, that's not for the TikTok. How do you engage with people? The way I like to do it is really just the way my mentors did it. The guys that, Dr. Rourke, Dr. Stuzen, Dr. Hidalgo, these guys have been teaching me in lecture-based format for years now, and they don't buy into the hype.
Right.
Until, gosh, within the last year, one of those guys didn't even have a social media account. And I bet he's never logged into it himself.
Yeah.
But they provide education. So I like to provide education in a digital format. I like to show off a good before and after, but I like to tell the story of how did we get to this before and after? Or why did we choose this procedure and not this procedure? Some of the filming that we're doing here this weekend is really all education based for me. Some of it's about highlighting my personality, my aesthetic, how I run the practice, how my team is cohesive. But the aesthetic and the patients that you try to draw means so much. And I think that's in large part based on maybe your social media footprint.
Well, you shared a few minutes ago about things that you're doing that I think are quite innovative.
Thank you.
Patient testimonials is one. And, for the most part, I would say most plastic surgery practices think, oh, let's get a patient testimonial, have someone write us a note saying how much they, enjoyed the procedure or how happy they are. But, again, kind of a written static note that, you don't really know who that face is behind, whether even sort of like legit,
Yeah.
right, et cetera. And that you've really focused on getting video patient testimonials and also with the fact that many patients don't want to go on camera.
Correct.
Right? So to preserve their privacy and confidentiality, but you've come up with some innovative ways to capture these video testimonials without sort of exposing who they are.
And these are very like impromptu things, but you're absolutely right. A lot of people love to share their story, and isn't it better to get it in an audio format or an audio visual format versus just reading like hey, 5 stars, right? 5-star reviews, great, right? With voice, we can hear the intonations. We can hear what makes the patient excited and why they're pleased with their results. It's not like, hey, my body looks great or my face has been lifted. That's easy, right? And the way I do it is I offer the patient the opportunity to sit with me on camera in the exam room and talk. But one of the nice ways I've found out to finesse this is I don't mind being on camera, clearly. Yeah, right. How y'all doing? But patient privacy that's as important to me as getting a safe and reliable result.
Right.
I don't want my patients to know that they're my patients unless they are telling people that. So that kind of feeds into my aesthetic and everything. But to answer your question is I'm on camera and I have the patient sit off camera. Sometimes we might have like a knee in there or a sleeve, right? To prove that it is not just a mannequin or some laugh track or something like that. But I feel like patients are able to express their story comfortably because they can see the camera is not pointed at them. Might some people recognize their voice? Sure. But it's not having your full face in there saying, hey, this guy's awesome. Essentially what they're saying is I'm off camera, I feel safe, I feel, my privacy is being respected. But this guy on camera, I got to give the love and respect that I'm so pleased with to me. So that's been a great workaround. Patients are really liking that. I need to post more of these, obviously, but it's a very nice way to get the feeling and the story and the patient experience while still maintaining that privacy, but in a more animated and brought to life fashion than like a letter.
And I love that, and I love the fact that, you're doing these innovative sort of techniques
Mhm.
to engage the patient and make them feel comfortable, but also capture that experience, right? Because I think in today's digital marketing world within plastic surgery is we want to capture the experience, the passion, the emotion, and sort of the satisfaction
Absolutely.
from that transformative treatment. You know, one of the things I have to ask is that, you're young, but you're successful
Mhm.
and you've, obviously well trained and very skilled at what you do, but at the same time is, you probably have to battle that a little bit in that, being a younger
Mhm.
plastic surgeon is sort of overcoming sort of like does he really know what he's doing? Has he really performed, that many cases, et cetera? So I think, maybe you and some of your peers
Yeah.
that are sort of younger in your career, right? How are you overcoming perhaps that hurdle or headwind that other older plastic surgeons don't have to battle as much?
I think it's an interesting topic because there's kind of a joke in our world, when you're young, you're doing whatever you can,
Right.
and as you progress, the more gray hair you get, the more face cases you're going to get
Yeah.
because that's like the pinnacle, at least for me. I think the way that my friends and I do it, we were all well trained. We all connect with each other. We all stay in touch with each other. We all ask questions about each other, present cases to each other. But it's a confidence. It's yes, we have been here before. We scored a touchdown before. We're not doing a touchdown dance because we've been there before. And we don't need to be loud about that. If someone wants a more experienced surgeon, then by all means, they can go to an older gentleman down the street, right? But if they want someone who's energetic and excited, knows the old techniques, but is also learning and still able to incorporate the new techniques, then that's like super huge. And even more so on that, it's someone like, say, myself, who has some experience, is gaining more experience, yet, but is continuing to learn. I'm not completely set in my ways. I'm okay with trying something new. I'm okay with tweaking the formula or the recipe. And that's where we really, anyone can do satisfactory work. Satisfactory is completely unacceptable to me. We need to do better all the time. And the only way to do that is one, to practice over the years and do different types of surgeries and do revisionary surgeries and fix other people's problems, right? But to bring the new techniques, and a lot of these are coming out of, Eastern Europe and South America, that unless you're exposed to these thought leaders and innovators in our field, you're not going to be able to adopt new things into your practice. So it's so important to go to conferences and hear these guys talk and see what they're doing.
Well, you had mentioned revisions,
Mhm.
and a large portion of procedures today, maybe some may be surprised by this, but is revision surgery.
Yes.
So these are previous patients that have had some case, some procedure performed, and they're at a point where they're dissatisfied, they're unhappy, and they're now looking for a new plastic surgeon, most likely to have sort of a revision, whether that's a
Absolutely.
a breast case or rhinoplasty or what have you. Being a younger surgeon, are you seeing yourself performing these revisions? And if so, what are you doing to get those cases? Because I got to imagine most of those would probably go to a more, call it experienced, older, gray hair surgeon. They're thinking like, oh, well, I made a mistake in my first choice.
And I think that's actually not true because the people whose work I'm revising tend to be those older gray-haired surgeons. I don't know what I am doing other than being present and kind and willing to take on these cases because I have been a magnet for revision cases. It's close to 35 to 40% of the surgeries that I'm doing now
Fantastic.
is not fixing my own patients, but is fixing another patient. And it's interesting. There's a non-scientific statistic saying that about 20 to 30% of plastic surgeries need some form of revision. That's if things go well. That could be a little scar revision. That could be we gained and lost weight after our tummy tuck and need to do a little nip tuck sort of thing. These are minor tweaks. But what you're talking about is a real revision where we have to redo everything, take out the implants, redo the scars, start from scratch, relift the face, go through that scar bed, move scars that were put in a lazy fashion by another surgeon into a more difficult technically difficult, but
Right.
aesthetically pleasing scar location. That is, I mean, every clinic day, there's one of those in my waiting room. And it's just a magnet. I don't know what it is, but and again, I don't know whether it's a gift or a curse. It's certainly more educational. It's more difficult, these surgeries, but the patient satisfaction can be higher because they've already gone through one, two, three meh procedures. And now we have, again, because I'm young, I can bring a new perspective or idea for treatment into that situation. And you know, if you fix something that's been tried to fix before and they're happy, that's the happiest patient I'm going to see all day.
Right. The only thing I can relate to, because I'm definitely not a plastic surgeon, is these sort of, do it yourself home, projects, right? So you're trying to do a home improvement project and you start it out. And if you're working from sort of a blank slate, it's always a little easier. Then you try to you screw it up and you're trying to go back and fix it.
Hmm.
I always find at that point, I got to call somebody.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think that's what we're talking about here is they got to call Ed Gronet.
Hmm.
Right.
You heard it.
Because there you go. Kind of a fun question.
Let's go.
And I was posed this a while back, and I'd love to get your take on it because I think you're right at the sweet spot of the doctor that, that this really sort of connects with. And that is thinking about how you market.
Mhm.
How do you reach your audience? How do you convert your audience into patients? How do you create that, what we call, warm digital handshake now with your social media community to bring them into the practice, hopefully seek a consult and be treated? And that is if you could have these 4 categories, and I want you to prioritize them.
Okay.
So first is you'd be prolifically known as a, clinical publisher, well known at the conferences, sort of you're on podium, kind of the clinician,
Mhm.
and the sort of the scientist, if you will, is sort of your calling card.
Mhm.
Next would be is you've got an amazing social media following, right? You have hundreds of thousands of followers. You're sort of, I don't know to say goofy, but you have very a warm, engaging personality, and it just connects to your audience through
Yeah.
social. The next would be is you deliver amazing education and you have phenomenal videos, you have a great website, and you're seen kind of in your community as a trusted source of information, especially that recognizing patients spend, tens of hours researching the procedure before they even make the phone ring and consult,
Mhm.
and that your website is just kind of the go-to. And then I would say lastly would be patient testimonials that you've done a really good job in putting together sort of a compendium or library of tremendous 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
So if you were to rank those 4 as you're now building out sort of as a younger plastic surgeon today, your practice, what would you hang your hat on?
I think my top 2 would probably be the 1 and 4 being like the trusted scientist, the one who's educating his peers, and then with the trusted name in the community. I think the least important thing for me is likes, follows, and followers because all sorts of different folks can follow you for all sorts of different reasons. I think that's the least rigorous way to evaluate things. But I think someone who delivers education to the community and sets reasonable expectations and educates people on, or just in general, what plastic surgery is, can be, and can accomplish, but more importantly, what it is not. There's no magic wand. We have techniques, we use them well. That's how to build trust slowly, not with, say, a TikTok dance or like having a bunch of beautiful women behind me every day and every single post I do to get clicks because I have had those and they do work. They are my highest rated things,
Hey,
right?
that's fine. No shame.
Versus just me talking about scientific stuff, like
Yeah.
not the most engaging content. Would swipe on by that, but just the one-on-one, the slow gaining one family member, one family, one patient's trust at a time, delivering good results to that patient, and then they tell their sister, they tell their husbands, they tell their brother-in-law. That's the route to growth that I really see is self-sustaining. You just do right by people, and everything else takes care of itself.
Well said, and it's been a pleasure having you
Thank
on
you.
the Digital Handshake again as a sort of, we'll call it now you've got number 2 appearance on the
Right.
show, which we're very proud of. We want to thank our sponsor, Media PSC, for making this podcast available to all of you, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.